Hello there, Glocal citizens. I'm Florence Adu, your host for the podcast that inspires a borderless mindset around doing something in the world. This week, I am, again, still in New York, but only for this last episode. I'm headed back to Africa. Hooray, hooray, hooray. But I'm speaking with Africa. I'm speaking with a very dynamic communications and media professional, Miss Aissata Sidibé. Isn't that melodic? She is the founder and president of Yelenba, which is Women in Action, an NGO focused on empowering women and girls through service. She has been a communication specialist with development institutions like the AECF, which is the Africa Enterprise Challenge Fund, and the IMF. We all know that as the International Monetary Fund. And she also runs the platform femmeafrique.com. And that is a news and media website that has more than 2.7 million followers, and where she hosts an interview series highlighting the accomplishments of enterprising women. Aissata, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you, Florence. Thank you. It's a pleasure to be here. Thank you so much.
Yes, thank you. So tell us more about where you're from, where you're local, and what is your craft?
Okay, where am I from? So, I often get this question and it's always confusing for me because I don't know myself where I'm really from because I have so many different. Okay, let me explain to make it easier.
Mm-hmm.
So I was born in Chad, which is Central Africa. And then my dad was posted there for a 2-year assignment. So when I was born there, we then eventually left Chad and moved back to the US because he was working in the United States. He was based in the United States.
Okay.
So, yes.
So is your father from Chad?
No, my parents are both from Mali. So
okay.
This is where I was coming. So my parents are both from Mali. So like I said, born in Chad, moved to the United States from Malian parents, but I never actually lived in Mali. Okay. When I was 10 years old, we left the United States and we moved to Senegal.
Okay.
So I spent most of my formative years in Senegal because I was there from 10 to 17 years old. And then I moved to France. So I finished high school in France.
Okay.
And I spent about 3 years in France before coming back to the United States, where I did my higher education, university, and then started working eventually at the IMF. And then I left the United States, I want to say, maybe about 19 years later, 2015. I moved to Ivory Coast because my husband is from Ivory Coast. And so I moved to Ivory Coast and I'm now an Ivorian citizen as well as a French citizen because my husband is also French. So French by marriage and French and Ivorian by marriage now.
Okay.
So,
wow. So you could have 4 passports.
Basically.
Yeah.
Or more, actually.
More, 5, because you could have had a US.
Exactly.
Yes.
US,
wow.
Mali. I want to say even Senegal because I spent 8 years in Senegal, and then also France and Ivory Coast.
Okay.
So,
hello. Another
very the world. I would
another global citizen. That's awesome. Yeah. Okay. So right now you're local in
Abidjan.
Côte d'Ivoire.
Yes. I'm local in Abidjan, Côte d'Ivoire. Like I said, in 2015, actually it was end 2015, so I want to say almost 2016, we moved to Abidjan, where my husband has his business. So I basically followed him in a sense because he had his business. He created his company in late 90s, early 2000. And the good thing is it's an IT company. So he was able to work remotely. Right, from the United States for a very long period of time. And then, business was booming for him. Ivory Coast was doing better. And so we decided to move back. We did a first attempt in 2008, but the situation didn't go quite well. I'm not sure if you know, but yes.
There was political, for my listeners, there was political struggle at that.
Exactly, in 2000. So we arrived in 2000, I want to say late 2008, early 2009. We had to leave in 2010, end of 2010, when the unrest started, end of 2010, early 2011. So we went back to the U.S. at that time. And then came back in 2016 and have been here since.
Okay, nice. So it's interesting. At that time, I was in Ghana in 2010, and we had a rental property, and we had all of these inquiries from people coming from Côte d'Ivoire because, everyone was kind of basically, if you could, you were getting out.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So we had a family, a very nice family that rented our home for about a year. And I think it was 2 years, and then they went back.
Exactly. Yeah. Because the unrest, thankfully it didn't last too long. It was actually 3 to 4 months of intense fighting, and then eventually calmed down and things stabilized by, I want to say May, June, things were calm. So, but, of course, it takes time after you've been through this.
Exactly.
It takes at least 2-3 years to really get back on track.
Exactly.
So, right. So a lot of people stayed longer than, 2 years abroad. But then, people who really just left because of the unrest a lot of them came back who didn't have, by that time, I was on leave without pay from the IMF. So I was able, thankfully, yes. And I actually had to let them know by 2011 if I was leaving completely,
right?
If I was going to come back. And at the time I decided, we decided it was smarter to go back because of the situation.
Yeah.
And then eventually, if we had to come back, we would advise them. But yeah.
Got it. So speaking of being on leave from the IMF, tell us about your craft.
Okay. So, communication is, in a sense, my craft, but my mom says I did, but I don't think I She said, when you used to be a kid, you used to sit in front of the TV and watch all these reporters and take a micro and act like you had a microphone and speak like they did. So I think unconsciously, perhaps I always wanted to be in communications, but but I didn't actually study communications in university. When I went to school, when I came back to the US for school, I actually went into economics because I wanted to work at the IMF. So I said, what do I need to get into the IMF? So it was a goal. I said, what do I need? I said, I need to study economics, obviously. So I went to University of Maryland, College Park, and I studied economics.
Okay.
And then I graduated with a bachelor's degree in economics. And then I went to the IMF and I said, I have an economics degree. I want a job. But of course, it's not that easy. They were like, well, we don't have anything for you right now. But what we can offer you is, they had a position, a research assistant position in the diversity office. And so I said, I'll take it. You don't have to ask twice.
Right.
And so I worked with the diversity advisor for about a year, helping her with everything. Of course, the IMF is a very diverse institution, 187 at the time, at least, member countries. And so, we're working with a lot of different nationalities and people from different backgrounds, cultures, and, and all that. So, and she was just starting, diversity at the time was taking more and more.
Right.
It was
it was just new.
It was taking off, right. It was, and so this was, for her, it was also new. And so, I worked with her, helping her, doing all the research and getting data, compiling data and writing reports, speaking to economists. At the time, there was an issue with African economists not getting promotions as much as, other economists and things like that. So we were compiling the data, and trying to put those into reports and things like that, translate that into reports, I should say. And so it was very interesting. But eventually, she only needed a person for a certain amount of time. So then I had to move on. And I was looking within the institution, where can I find something, And a job came up in the communications department. They were looking for a communications assistant. And I said, I'll take it.
Right.
I'll take it. And I actually moved to the communications department. At the time, it was the external relations department.
Okay.
To the external relations department, I took a position in the media relations as a media relations assistant. And what I basically did was the morning press. So it was very early morning hours, waking up at 5:30 in the morning, searching news, 3 hours. And then we had to put out a report, with all the latest news for the staff, for the management and staff. And so it wasn't
That's great training.
It is. It really was. I was right in the thick of it, right in the middle of it. And so it was absolutely great training, but it's also very stressful because you're under pressure because, you have to deliver this because we had to put it out at 8 sharp every day. So 5:30 a.m. you had to be online. We had a database. We had a news database that we had to go through. And then you also have to go through different news websites and things like that in case, because especially for, foreign countries, which were not listed in that database, you had to go through, all these different newspapers from different countries, things like that, and make sure you got, main headlines and things like that. I want to say it was very stressful, but it was it was a wonderful experience. And I have to say, I never regretted it. It gave me that, not strength, but it gave me that,
I guess
I don't want to say dry. It gave me that grit.
Kind of sure, exactly. Right. The discipline to
to push forward, to really keep looking for the news because, you would also get in trouble if, a headline,
you missed something.
You missed it and, management would come back to you and they knew us. They knew all of us. It was a very small team. There was only 4 of us. So they knew, well, you guys, you didn't see this, or, and so we really had to be on top of things. It was very small, but it was great. It was great. I have to say it was great.
Yeah.
We did that for
Wow.
a couple years. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Okay. So you always knew that intuitively, your soul knew that communications was who you were going to be.
And then I think after that is when I liked communication. And then I also worked in public affairs. Eventually, I basically did almost every single division in communications. So I did public affairs. I did, like I said, media relations. I did internal communications. I did publications. So I worked almost everywhere within the communication department. And I usually did about 2 years, 2.5 years in each division.
Sure. Yeah,
I became
expert. Yes. Yeah.
I think you're always growing. You're always learning.
That's true.
Definitely. That's true. Yeah. And then I went back to do a master's in, I did my MBA in 2000, while I was at the IMF from 2006 to 2000. I graduated in 2008.
Okay.
I did a master in business administration from the University of Maryland as well.
Okay.
And so, the reason why, and then people always told me, why didn't you do communications? At the time, you were already in communications. You knew, you liked communications. But I said, I felt like communication might just limit me. I mean, if I did only communications, I felt like I may want to run a business one day and,
Sure, right.
That background as well, right? So I felt like you could always do, for communication, you can always do training as opposed to just, studying. Because, there's so much stuff now. I mean, imagine all the social media that we didn't used to have.
Sure.
And you don't necessarily need to go to school for that, but you definitely need some type of training.
Right. Exactly.
And so for me, it was important to be able to then, if I did want to have a management position, eventually have an MBA.
A different thing. Sure. Okay. Makes perfect sense because it's serving you well.
Yeah.
So tell us about your experience, like in terms of moving and your experience moving, particularly from your Senegalese experience to France, because until then, you had been an African child.
Yes. Well, an American,
right?
Because when I arrived, actually, to be honest, when I arrived in Africa, when I was 10, it was a culture shock for me. I mean, I was 10 years old already. Because 10 years old, you're,
you know who you are.
Yeah, a little bit. You're used to your American life, your American foods. To your American shows. And, not to say that, to be honest, our parents exposed us to Africa very early. So we spent all our summers in Mali.
Okay.
Like I said, I never lived in Mali, but I spent
time.
I spent all my summers in Mali. I spoke the language fluently. I still do.
Okay.
My mom, that's all my mom spoke to us at home, even when we were in the US.
Oh, nice. So which language is that?
Ombara,
okay.
Which is, it's similar to Jula that they speak in Ivory Coast and Malenke they speak in. So it's spoken in a lot of West African countries, specifically Burkina Faso, Mali, Ivory Coast, Senegal not so much, but Guinea.
Okay.
Senegal's mainly. So it's spoken in a lot of different countries. But that was one thing that she really transmitted to us is the language. Only she refused to speak French to us. No French, no English. If you want to speak to mom, you have to speak in Bambara, where she doesn't answer. So we had
good for her.
Yep. So we were able to really pick it up. All of my sisters, I have 4 sisters. We all speak fluently. So it's not a shock when we go to Mali. But anyway, coming back to your question, and when I moved from the US to Senegal, like I said, it was a bit of a culture shock. It was hard. It was hard integrating because, I don't know, but all these people in my school, they were all so cool. I thought I was going to be the US and, I'd be the one showing everyone everything. And it was like, oh my God, no, not really. You're not the in girl. You're not the in girl here. So it was like, okay, I'm not the in girl, but okay. But, it was not what I expected at all. But eventually, I adapted, of course, and made lots of friends. And I love living in Senegal. I still love Senegal. And I visit whenever I can. I have lots of Senegalese friends. I speak a little bit of Wolof. And, so Senegal is in my heart. I really should have gotten the passport, but.
Exactly.
I really love my Senegalese experience. So, and then coming back to what you said again, going to France was not so much, France has always been in our culture, especially in West Africa, Francophone West Africa. I had been to France on vacation. I already knew
Okay.
a little bit. My sisters were
Sure.
studying there already.
Okay.
And so, it's a natural transition. You know how it is
Right.
with
Yeah.
our
Yes.
former colonizers. You usually go to France to study for Ghanaians,
Mhm.
UK, for
Mhm.
Nigerians, it's the UK. For us, it's France. For
Yes.
Malians and, Ivorians, Senegalese, you go to France. You want higher education, you go to France. For me, it was a little bit different. I eventually went to the US because, I had that US background. I spoke English
Mhm.
already.
Mhm.
So for me,
Mhm.
it was easier. But at the time, I had very few friends who wanted to migrate to the US.
Mm.
Most of them were going to France. A few eventually came to the US, but most people, it was really, at the time, it was France. France was very popular for studies. It still is, by the way.
Okay. Yeah.
Although
Yeah.
now, people are looking at more, because we're in such a global world, right? So everybody wants
Mhm.
to learn English as well. Because,
Right.
like, if you don't have
Right.
English,
Right.
you're missing out. So, a lot of people are now moving to the UK and the US for studies. But yeah, so moving to France, I mean, it wasn't so much. I have to say, I didn't like it so much.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Where were you in France? Were you in
I
Paris?
was in the south of France. No, I
The
was in the
South.
south of France, Aix-en-Provence, it's called. It's a city
Okay.
not far from Marseille.
Yep.
I mean, the south is very nice. Provence it's a
Mhm.
beautiful, it's beautiful. The environment is beautiful. Everything, beautiful city. But I felt like it wasn't giving me what I needed. I felt like I wasn't growing in that environment.
Okay. Right.
And
Sure.
so eventually, because I did 1 year of university in France, I
Mhm.
attended University of Aix-Marseille, and it didn't really work out. I don't know. I didn't fit. I didn't
Right. It wasn't for you there.
it
Yeah.
wasn't for me. It wasn't for me. I wasn't thriving. It wasn't good for me. So I eventually moved to the US. At first, my parents did not like the idea at all of me
Uh-huh.
moving to the US. I won't go back to the stories of how I came to the US, but I ended up in Washington, D.C., back in Washington, D.C. And I told my dad, this is what is for me. He said, okay, well, we will see. At first, they were very angry with me because they felt like, you started in France, you need to finish in France.
Yes.
And then, we clashed a little bit at that point where
Mhm.
we butt heads. But eventually, I mean, I showed them that, this is really what I want. I came to the US. I even got a job. I started working part-time.
Mhm.
So they didn't really have to send me any money. So, I think they saw that I was not going to budge. And so
Yeah.
I figured, okay, but if you're going to go to school, then that's fine. And so that's what ended up happening. So I ended
Okay.
up school and all that. And they
And then
paid for the schooling, thank God, because
yeah, it would have been hard.
yeah,
Yeah.
take care of myself, but that was about it. Yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Yeah.
Thankfully in the end we were able to come to an agreement, and that's when I started my schooling there.
So it sounds like your father was a diplomat.
Yes, my dad was actually, I should have said that, but my dad used to work at the IMF. Which
Okay.
was why
Okay.
he used to work. So my dad arrived in the US in 1967.
Okay.
Um,
Mhm.
and he started working at the IMF. And when we left in 85, he was working for the Central Bank of West African States, which is
Okay.
headquartered in Senegal, which is why we moved into Senegal.
Okay.
And so, yeah, working for the IMF, I think that was a dream that I had when I used to visit my father at the IMF and I used to see the building. I was like, I want to work here. I
Yeah.
remember as I
Yeah.
was visiting him, going to lunch there with my mom and my sisters, and it was so huge and all these flags. I was just impressed, and I was like, I love
Yeah.
this place. I want to work here. So I
Sure.
think it was a childhood dream, and I felt like and once again, but the funny thing is, it was a childhood dream, and I went to school, I studied economics, but then in the end, I didn't do economics at the IMF. I ended up doing
Mhm.
communications, right? So I guess
Mhm.
somehow what I wanted to do found me in a way. I don't know if I should say I found it or it found me, but
Yeah.
in a sense, I found my way.
Got it.
Was
Got
communication,
it.
which wasn't really necessarily economics.
Okay. Yeah, it's the right path. So this is where I ask my guests the kind of why, the where, and you've given us a lot about how you've come to be living in Cote d'Ivoire and Abidjan.
Mhm.
But I want to get a better sense of how you yourself found your footing, because you mentioned that you followed your husband, you
Mhm.
left your work at the IMF. So how was that relocation process for you as a wife? I don't know if you were a mother by that time, but so how was that, and how did you find your footing?
So I'll be honest, I had 2 children by the time we left the US in
Mhm.
2016. My son was born in 2008 and then my daughter in 2010. And so that was part of the decision as well to leave, because In terms of schooling, it was becoming complicated. We didn't live, we wanted our kids to go to the French school. It was far from the house. The commuting was complicated. We felt like eventually we had to find a way to move back to Africa. And so unconsciously, it was always there that we would eventually move to Africa. Like I said, we had done that first stint in 2008, which didn't work out. And then we came back. So for me, I had a career, but I felt like I can do what I do almost anywhere, right? I didn't feel like if I leave now, everything is going to, I won't be able to do anything anymore. I still felt that I could achieve even if I, left the IMF. And so that's why I think it made it a little bit easier to leave. Also, I think when I married, my husband and I, we made the decision that, we will live together. I mean, because, some people, they decide for financial reasons, okay, you stay here, I stay there, and, here. But we always felt like we need to stay together. So the choices were made that way. Because when we first married, my husband, he was about to leave. He had just finished his studies. He went to Indiana University. He had finished his studies and he wanted to go back to Ivory Coast. And in a sense, he stayed because of me. Also, there was political instability in the Ivory Coast at the time as well. So that's another reason. But I think for the main part, he stayed because, we were together and we were married. We were there. I had a job. He also had a company which was growing. But, I want to say that it was mainly because of me, because I had a stable job, I enjoyed the job and, we were able to, live there and it wasn't a problem. And he was able to do his job from a distance, from remotely. And so that's how we were able to, we stayed in the US for a while. And then eventually, we figured, okay, let's try. And, because I knew for him, too, it was important. His company was growing. And, if you want opportunities, obviously, you need to be in the country. So he would go back and forth once in a while. Yeah, he would go back and forth once in a while. And then finally, we said 2008, let's try it. And so we tried it. It didn't work out. We went back to the US. Thankfully, I still had my job. He was still able to work remotely. So, we continued. But in the back of our minds, we always knew eventually we're going back home, right?
Yes.
So I think when we came in 2016, it was a little difficult, I have to say, in the beginning, because I had never really worked in Africa. This was my experience working in Africa. So for me, it was a big shock.
Yeah.
I want to say different from the shock when I was a 10-year-old and, I was not the it girl.
Yeah.
This was, oh my God, can I do this? Because, first of all, even the language, I mean, yes, I speak French fluently, but, if you haven't worked in French, it's different, right? Because speaking and writing professionally is different from, speaking with your friends and, speaking with, it's very, very different. So I had to adapt to that. I had to learn quickly. I had to learn the mentality of people, and which is very different, especially because when I started working, we worked with the MCC, but it was...
And the MCC is the Millennium
Challenge Corporation, Millennium Challenge Corporation. But we were the national part. So we were on the national side.
Okay.
Right. So we worked with the government of Ivory Coast. So basically I worked for the government of Ivory Coast, working with the MCC to develop the program. Right. So I worked as a communication expert at the time. And so, it was really working with public sector in Africa.
Right. And that is a real culture shock. Yes.
So it was leaving the IMF, which is very institutionalized and everything is very hierarchical and you know what to do. Everybody knows what to do. And, everybody's professional, everybody. So to coming to, I don't want to say that public sector is not, but you know what I mean? You see, the
yes.
And so for me, it was difficult. It was difficult, but I think it was an experience I had to go through to understand the mentalities and to understand the environment. Because I think it was a wonderful experience in terms of learning about the country, about Ivory Coast, about, especially at the time, we were working on with the program. We were at the time, we then got the compact program, but we were working towards getting the compact program.
Okay.
It was a program that is, it's a grant that is given by MCC, but then you have to work towards it. You don't just get it, right?
Right. So basically you were working on structuring the actual
with the team
implementation.
Yes, exactly. With the team who was working on structuring the implementation. It was an excellent experience because, I learned everything that had to do with Ivory Coast. I mean, I remember speaking with my husband at the time and he would say, how do you know all this? How do you know that?
Ah, right.
Yeah, there's a project in this area, or there's this, and he was always amazed because he was like, Ivory Coast in and out now. I know
Yes.
ministries and I knew what they did. I knew people in different ministries. So, it was very good. I mean, and I also built a lot of contacts, a lot of connections. So that was really good. So it was a transition I had to go through. It wasn't easy. I'm not going to say it was easy. It wasn't easy, but it was a wonderful learning experience, I have to say.
Mm-hmm.
And
yeah.
I'm glad I went through that. So
yeah, and that's actually how we met. So you really
yes,
did know.
yes,
Yes. You were the connector. You really helped. You did me a solid with helping with that project. So we met. I went to a conference in Ivory Coast. It was an education. It was the Africa America Institute. There's an education conference. And I was there because I was doing distribution for a documentary.
Mm-hmm.
And so I just needed to meet people and know people. And I happened on Miss Aissata, and here I am. I was able to do it very well. We did it actually very well. So thank you for that.
You're welcome.
Yeah. So speaking of being local and being in Ivory Coast, this is where I ask my Glocal Speak question. So we want to know what you hear. So I ask my guests to share a word, phrase, or saying that is a meaningful part of your local experience and why or how you came to value it as a Glocal Speak.
Yes, something that people say often in Ivory Coast and that I've picked up now. I didn't used to say this, but now I say it all the time. And for me, it makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
We always say ça va aller, which is in French, of course, but it means everything is going to be fine.
Okay.
So, and I think it's very African mentality, right? Even when a situation is terrible, right? We say it's going to be fine, right?
Right.
It's this faith that we have, as Africans. Right? And it's really cultural because, in the United States, things are falling apart. Nobody is going to say it's going to be fine. Everybody's upset.
Right.
People are running all over the place. It's just a terrible situation. But here, people have this faith, there's this belief that, whatever happens, it's God's will and it's going to be fine. Right. So, and I think I really like that. And a lot of times it makes me feel better in a sense, right? Because whatever the situation may be, that it's going to be okay. Eventually, it will be okay. It may not be okay right now. Obviously, you're saying that to make yourself feel better, but that eventually things will fall into place. Eventually, everything will be fine.
Sure. And I agree with that. I think that you said it's just this faith in the us of the world, right? So we can persevere. So yeah, I love that too. Like we have sayings like that in Ghana, but I think it's definitely cultural. Like definitely Africans have this. It's, what can we do? It's going to be okay. That's all we can. Yeah. Yeah, I love that.
In the beginning, it used to annoy me because it was like, well, no, we need to do this and we need to do that. And then I eventually understood the meaning of it. It's not that we're not going to do this and that. It's just that calm down. Just take a deep breath. It's going to be okay. You can find solutions, but just focus on the problem and just, it's going to be okay.
Yeah.
So yeah. So now I use it a lot, which is, in the beginning I was like, now I'm like, yes, ça va aller. Which is really, ça va aller. So, so now I tend to use that myself. And
so you're definitely local.
Yeah, I think so. It's been 5 years now, what can I say?
Right. So I want to get more into the work that you're doing now. So we talked about, your past life. So let's talk about what you're doing now. So you are the founder of an NGO, not-for-profit. So how did you come to that work?
Okay, so this is a very personal story. How I came to this work is a very personal story. Because when I told you, when I first moved to Ivory Coast, I didn't necessarily see eye to eye with my boss, right? And I felt that a lot of times I was not necessarily being supported, right? To find a resolution. It was very difficult. For me, it was a very difficult situation. And, when I was working there, I felt to myself, okay, and I'm a person, I have connections, I know people, I'm resourceful, and I can't find a solution to this problem. Imagine somebody who's not connected, who's not resourceful, who's just a simple person. How do they deal with issues that they have? And for me, that was a question I pondered on for a long time. And it came out to be, I feel like I need to help other people who are in situations where they don't have much, they don't know people, they are not resourceful. How can we help them? How can we, for example, and it was very specific in the beginning. It was more, for example, for people who work in companies or businesses, young women, young men, who are in a situation where they find themselves, against their boss or their superior being harassed or things like that, but there's no recourse. And that's one of the issues in Africa. A lot of times, the hierarchy in private sector and institution makes it that people don't have recourse.
Exactly.
As you say, go see human resources. You go to human resources, but human resources is really not going to do anything for you because, they're really working for the boss. Everybody is working for the boss. And everyone is afraid of the boss.
Exactly.
So if you have a problem, I don't want to say it like this, but you just need to shut up and deal with it.
Yeah. Or leave.
Yeah, exactly.
And most can't leave because they need money.
Because they need a paycheck. They need that job. They need that money. They don't have any other financial means. And so, for me, that was terrible because I was thinking, okay, I have recourses, right? I have people I know. I can talk to other people who can perhaps talk to my boss and things like that. But imagine somebody who has no recourse. What did he do? For me, and I was suffering. And so I'm thinking, imagine those other people. What would they be going through? And so in the beginning, we wanted to do, and I spoke to a group of friends and, I explained my situation and I was telling them, I think we need to do something for people. We had this meeting. I called all my friends and I said, let's come up with ideas of what we can do. And in my mind, what I really wanted to do was mediation, right? Like create like a mediation association where we intervene for people in job settings where they're having difficulties with their bosses or their superiors or their colleagues even, sometimes. And so that was my first idea. But then, you put a group of 8 women together and it morphs into something else, right? And so we ended up saying, oh, maybe we can save the children or maybe we can, so it went into all these different directions. And I had to tell them, ladies, let's focus, right? Yes, I know everybody here wants to save the world, but we need to focus. We need to come up with something where we make an impact, where we really, we give back and, and all that. So it really started with that meeting. It really, really started with that meeting that we had in April 2018, where we sat down. It was, I think we were 8 or 10 women. I don't remember, but we sat down and we decided that we had to do something. We didn't know what at the time, right? The first meeting, we ended up saying, okay, we'll do something. We don't know yet what we will do. Will it be an association? Will it be a nonprofit? We didn't know the format, but we knew we had to do something. And so eventually, we started meeting regularly and we came up with the NGO. And then we decided, you know what, let's do it for women. We're women, now, especially now, women are, the movement is everywhere.
Rising, right. Exactly.
Right?
Yeah.
So we said, let's do, and then the other thing was also that we felt that most of the women in the group, we felt that we were privileged, right? We had parents who were able to pay for our schooling. We were, we all have an education. We're all married. Well, not all married, but we all, have some type of support.
Right.
We have jobs. We have children. We have to give back somehow because some people are not privileged. And it's important for us as privileged to give back. If we don't give back, who will give back?
Yeah.
So that was also one of the main foundations of, the creation of this NGO. Was
nice.
To give back.
Wonderful. Wonderful. So since then, so that was in 2018. Since then, you have grown.
Yes.
And established. And so tell us about some of the projects that you've been involved in.
Yeah. So we basically, what we decided to do, so we said we want to do women empowerment. We also wanted to do a lot of awareness raising. I'm never sure how to say this in English. In French, you would say sensibilisation, which is is raising awareness, basically.
Yes.
And we do a lot of that with the young girls. We also do what we call autonomisation. Autonomisation is helping women to
be independent.
There's not a perfect translated word for autonomisation.
Sure, right.
But it's empowerment in a sense. It's to empower women to become more independent.
Right.
So that's also another thing that we wanted to do. So what we do is, like I said, we mentor young girls as well. So empowerment through mentoring and raising awareness.
Okay.
And then, how would I say this? Now I wish I could speak French.
No, so say it in French. Let's see what I can translate.
I'm supposed to speak English. Okay.
Yes, no, English.
Let's say empowerment. Let's just put it all in empowerment. But the activities are mentoring. So we mentor young girls.
Yes. So what ages? Where do you find them in high school? Like where do you start?
Okay. So we mentor young entrepreneur women, and we mentor students, but university students type. Okay. So not high school. No. Sure. What we've done so far is university students as well as young entrepreneurs.
Right.
And then we also currently we're working in a village, and this was it was totally random. We ended up in that village in a random fashion, but then we ended up working with the women there. So we wanted to do an activity at the end of the year. At the end of 2018, we said, okay, we created this NGO. Let's do something at least, right? And so we wanted to do like a Christmas activity for children. And that's something that we do also. We also do that. We don't do as much as, because we feel like, teach people how to fish is better than giving them the fish, right?
Right.
So we like to do the, comment on dit caritatif, like the donations and the giving part, but we try to avoid that as much as possible.
Sure. Yeah.
Right. Because, like I said, especially now.
Yeah, you want to make impact that's lasting.
Thank you. So, but we said, let's do this little activity for the end of the year. We'll give gifts to the children. So we ended up there. We did like a Christmas tree. We gave gifts to the children in the village. And then we spoke to the women and they were all so happy. They told us, oh, we should work together. And we said, oh, yeah, definitely we can work together. And so we started working with these women. Another program we worked on was the Women Wake Up. And Women Wake Up was a program that we did in the village of Adoumangan, which is part of the Jacquesville commune or, bigger city. And so Women Wake Up, we did it with the Embassy of the United States and the YALI program. And it was really to teach women. So we brought a lot of different speakers, women entrepreneurs who had succeeded from nothing, right? This lady from Cameroon, she worked at the market. She created her own business. Now she has a restaurant. She sells fish. So anyway, just to say that we brought a lot of different speakers who inspired the women, who spoke to the women. We did different sessions for them. And it was about 200 women, 150.
Okay, wow. Wow, that's
Yes. And so I love this project because in the end, it really, you could feel the results. It was tangible because we came back to the women after 6 months because we had told them, we're leaving you with, all these shared experiences, all these testimonials. What can you do, on your part? What do you feel that you can do? And so when we came back I think it was 4 months later, they came to us and they actually called us and told us, you need to come and see us because we want to tell you what we've been doing. And so we went to see them and they had started, I don't want to say microfinance, but like a savings program.
Okay, maybe kind of like a susu, but not a susu where everyone puts in and then they can
disperse a little bit different because there's but also microfinance type a little bit because there were interest rates, in a sense.
Oh, okay.
Yes.
Okay.
So
that's sophisticated.
You can borrow. Yeah, very sophisticated. There's a young man who runs the program in the neighboring villages, and they called him and told him, we spoke to these ladies, and now we want to join, because we feel that we can do for ourselves. And so they joined, and by the time I left there, I think they had saved they were up to about $2,000 that they had put together. And you can borrow against the money, but you can borrow up to a certain amount, and it's based on what you put in, right?
Okay.
So yeah. Okay. So it was. It was amazing. We were really impressed. We were so happy because that's the whole point of doing this is really teaching people, telling them you can do it on your own. You don't because one of the things that came out when we went to do this program, they were telling us we need money. We want to do this. It's always we need money, and we told them
yes.
You already make money because most of them have small activities, right? They do, they sell food stuff, they sell different things. So a lot of them have small activities. And so we felt like this is just a matter of changing the way you think. It's not the money, it's the mindset that you need to change. You just have to see how can I do it myself? Get into a group, put money, and then borrow against them. So it was just, they came together and we didn't tell them what to do.
You just, right. You basically gave them all the tools though.
They just did it. And so we were ecstatic. We were happy. We were excited. We went to see them. We actually even made a donation to the fund because we felt like, okay, you're really doing this. So we're going to add to, give you a little something to encourage you. And so it was very exciting, very, very exciting to see that your efforts are being rewarded in a sense.
That's awesome. That's awesome. So,
and we also, just quickly, just to tell you, we also built a school for them because they had, but this is something, because we, like we said, we don't really, it's not that we don't work for children, but we mainly do for women, but you can't separate women and children, obviously.
Right. Yeah.
And they had started a building, not really started anything. It was just 4 walls, but they had started some type of construction. And they told us, we just need your help to finish this building. Please help us finish the school so we can put our kids there. And then we can actually go and do our activities. Because when kids are 2, 3, 4, There's no kindergarten. The kids don't go to 6 years old in primary school. And you can imagine babysitting, because you can't leave a 2-year-old, a 3-year-old, or a 4 or 5-year-old unattended. So we helped them finish the school. We just recently finished the school. We gave them the keys. We're doing the inauguration in February.
Oh, wonderful.
If COVID allows.
Yes, right. Exactly. Speaking of, how is the situation in Côte d'Ivoire? In Africa, it's varied. So how is it there?
Say Côte d'Ivoire, we were doing well until Christmas.
Okay.
The holiday season, I think people just felt like to be with family. We had a lot of people coming from abroad. This melting pot of people, having parties, doing events, and January was terrible. It's terrible. I mean, and they're actually thinking of confinement again.
A lockdown, yeah. I think that's across the board, because I'm hearing that in Ghana as well. Like there's this new wear your mask, everyone, and you point to leadership. I mean, we saw what leadership at fault did in the US, all the highest level of deaths, same thing in South America. So African leaders really have to, because they too were partying, and they, you saw it on the media. So it's like, oh, if our leaders are doing it, then we can do it too. And that's where it all falls down. So how are you funding the NGO?
What we do a lot of fundraising.
Okay.
We essentially do fundraising. So we fund ourselves through fundraising, essentially. We pay all of our administrative costs through dues, through member dues. So we don't touch the donations that we get. We really try to avoid touching the donations for anything that's administrative.
Okay.
When I say administrative, I mean we have an assistant, for example, to help with the NGO, the day-to-day. And then we
accounting, things like that.
Exactly. Anytime we have any type of administrative fees, we use our dues.
Okay.
And then, but for everything else, for anything that has to do with the donations and things like that, we raise funds and we do events. For example, last time we had an event was in March of 2008. We did the Yelimba market. And we had all these women. We had a market. We basically did a marketplace, and we had women come and sell. And they gave us 10% of their profits, which we felt low, by the way. But this time we're going to, when we do it this March, we might try to raise it a little bit, do maybe 15%. But that was very helpful. And then we also do a lot of just informal fundraising where we have people, they know about our NGO and they give us money. And then we did a larger fundraising more recently for the school.
Okay.
So that was very targeted. We did a campaign. We raised funds. We raised funds even in the US. I mean, we had a GoFundMe page.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. We did that. And then we also did a whole website page on our website in Ivory Coast. And we got a lot of funds, actually. So that's how we finished the school.
Yeah. Wonderful.
We did a more formal fundraiser.
So very grassroots.
Yes, very grassroots. But the thing is, because it's a group, we're 15 women in this group. 15 women.
Okay. So you've grown.
Yes, we've grown. 15 women, and 15 women who all have their networks, who all have their connections, who all have so we use that, right? So, I mean, we're able to raise through some people, of course, some people are better than others, but, everybody has a network. So you just tap your network, and that's how we're able to get funds.
Right. Wonderful. So speaking of networks, you also run a platform, which is Femme. So it's all this continuum of women. Yes.
Yeah, somehow it all fits together. I don't know how it
it all that's what seems to happen as you kind of mature in your professional self. So tell us about Femme and how you
actually, it's Afrique Femme. I should correct you.
I mean Afrique Femme.
Afrique Femme, yeah.
Yes.
Afrique Femme, which means, African women in English. Afrique Femme, Africa, Femme, women. So Afrique Femme is a platform. Afrique Femme exists since 2013, right?
Okay.
So, and I joined them, and what I do is I help to run the platform.
Okay.
And I also host a show on Afrique Femme. It's called African Women 2.0. Okay. Unfortunately, it's only in French. We're trying to see if we can do it in English. Because there's a lot of people who tell us, I have friends, when I post the videos on Facebook and Instagram, I have a lot of friends in the US who tell me, well, I love the way you guys look, but I can't understand a word. So we're thinking about going that route. And then also even want to broaden it, so that we can interview women in English and all that. So we're really thinking about that. But for now, it's only Francophone. And we interview different women, women who are successful in their fields, women who are in all different fields and who have a story to tell in a sense. And experience to share, because that really is the main purpose. It's this experience that they're sharing. You know, in
Yes.
Africa, we lack models. We lack role models,
Mm-hmm.
female role models.
Mm-hmm.
And so, in a sense, this is showing young African girls that, you can do it. It's not impossible because, yes, we have some women who have been to school, who have done, higher education, but then we have some women who have not done higher education but are successful. Like we
Right.
had this comedian lady who came and she was telling us, listen, my office is my house and my work tool is my phone. And I do everything and I'm very successful. And she is very successful. This is a person who
Yeah.
has a million followers on Facebook who's able to
Sure.
generate revenue from her job. So it's just to say that things are changing. The world is changing. It's a virtual world now. We've
Mm-hmm.
been forced to accept that because of COVID. And
Mm-hmm.
it's a virtual world and there's so much you can do. You just have to, and this comes up again and again from all the women's that we invite, from all this, I said women's, all the women that we invite is that, you have to just believe in your dreams. And that's
Yes.
extremely important. Believe in yourself, believe in your dreams. If you
Right.
do what you love, the money will come. And
Exactly.
that is something they all said it. There was not a single woman who sat down who said, I'm doing this job that I hate, but I'm making a lot of money. All of them are passionate about what they do. And that's
Yeah.
how they're able to make money, right? And
Mm-hmm.
and basically they follow their dreams. And so that's really, really important. And I think that's the message for young people now. People
Right.
focus too much on how do I get to where they are now? No, focus on what you like to do and see how you eventually can make money from that. But the important thing is to focus on something you love. Because when you love it too, you're not so much looking for the money. You're really
Right.
doing it because you love it, right? You're not paid, you're not making so much money. But eventually, if you do it well enough, the money will come. And
Right.
the glory and the success.
Yeah. And I had a guest and she volunteered quite a bit before she fell into her profession. And so I think that letting women know it's okay not to get paid, like even volunteering, because the more you know, the better you will be at finding yourself, number one. So being able to do what you love helps you find yourself, because I think so many young women are just lost because they're not allowing themselves to find themselves.
Absolutely.
And then it's because of that, but I just have to make money. And, obviously circumstances. So that's why I love what you're doing with the Ilanba, because women have to be able to have the space, having a place to send your child gives you some space to understand yourself. Having, a support network gives you the space to, maybe dabble in something that you are not quite sure of, but will eventually bring you some returns because you actually love doing that. So I love when people give that advice and consistently give that advice. So that's your series is wonderful. I've watched them. It is a wonderful, yes. And so just dub it.
Mm-hmm.
Just dub it, subtitles, because it looks beautiful and these women are dynamic and, like you said, they're all walks, there's women who are in the industry, women who are independent entrepreneurs. So I really recommend that. And again, folks, the show notes will have links to all of these sites. So speaking of believing your dreams, this is my mindset hack question. So this is where I ask my guests, what is your favorite or an innovative mindset hack? So this is one that you can imagine or one that you know of.
Me, I keep going. I'm like the Energizer Bunny, I swear.
Okay.
I really am like the Energizer Bunny. I get up in the morning, I go, go, go. And sometimes I feel like I need to sit down and take time to focus, but not that it's difficult for me, but I feel like I'm a doer.
Okay.
I'm a doer.
Okay.
I like to get things done. Right?
Okay.
That's what drives me in the morning. That's what drives me daily. That's what always driven. I mean, I've always been driven that way. I'm just need to do things. I can't just, how some people, they need to, I don't meditate. Maybe I should.
Okay.
I don't, I'm not that type of person. No, I have my calm moments, obviously.
Yes.
And I do a lot of that. What I do at night, but I feel like it's not really meditating. It's really just it's a laundry list of things to do. But that's the way I just keep going. And I think I need to do more of sitting down and focusing but I just feel like life is just, you need to keep moving.
Right. Oh, but that's a mindset hack. Just keep moving.
Keep moving.
That works too. Okay. Okay. I like that. I like that. Okay. So we're getting to the end of our conversation. I so appreciate your time. It's always a pleasure. So I want to ask you something more about not what you do, but who you are. So you said you keep moving, but what are some of the things that you're reading now? So are you a reader? Are you a watcher? Or are you a listener?
I'm a reader and a watcher.
Okay. Okay.
So I'm a reader and a watcher. Unfortunately, I haven't had time to read so much. And you know, it's funny because I had a friend. I love my friend, my girlfriend. She trained me when I started at Morning Press at the IMF. And we're still in touch. She's Australian
Uh-huh.
and she's back in Australia now. But she told me, I mean, I was much younger than she was when I started. And she told me, read now because once you have children, you will not have time to read anymore.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I used to laugh about it, but now I realize that it's very true. Once you have children, you don't have as much time. Definitely, I agree.
Sure.
But I do read. But recently, I have to be honest, I haven't read that much. The last book I read, I want to say, was a book from Venance Conan. Venance Conan is a journalist and writer. He's Ivorian. And he wrote a book that really caught. I mean, I love the book, I have to say. I mean, even the title was provocative. It was called, it's in French, but it says essentially, if the Black man doesn't want to stand on his own 2 feet, then just let him fall.
That's the title.
That's the title, I promise you.
Okay.
Si le noir ne veut pas se tenir debout, laissez-le tomber. And what it really talked about is African mentality and how we need to change this post-colonialism mentality, of always waiting for aid, of always waiting for people to help us. You know how you say la main tendue, the outstretched hand, where you're always waiting for someone to give you something.
Yes.
And he was saying that we have this mentality is rampant in Africa, and we need to get away from it. We need to be able to know and believe in ourselves. And we do so many great things. But then we always feel that, we need aid from this country or that country, or we need money from this person or that. So he was saying we just need to be able to stand on our own 2 feet.
Yes.
And in that, he also says, the systemic brainwashing that we got from colonialism, where, you are told that, Black is not beautiful, your languages are savage languages, and, all these different things that we were taught through, years of oppression, right? Not years, centuries of oppression. He's saying we need to get away from that. We need to be more conscious. We need to love our culture. We need to love our music. We need to love our people. We need to love our colors. And, he talks about all the little things that we do. We don't even realize, the skin bleaching, the hair, the clothing. He was saying something that's so true. Why is it in Africa that we wear suits? I mean, it's not adapted to the weather. It's so simple.
Yes, very simple things.
Right?
Yes.
We don't even think about it because it's just been, it's been handed down to us, and we just continue doing it without even thinking about it. And so, so those are some of the things that he was saying. And the reason why he said, he snapped a picture. I can't remember what country it was in. I think it was in Benin. And he snapped a picture of latrines, right? He was traveling in country. He was going on some, he's a journalist, so he was there for a report. And so he snapped a picture. And on the latrines, it said, the people of this city, thanks. I don't know if it was the German people or,
whatever.
These latrines. And he said it shocked him and it stayed with him. And this happened many, many years before he wrote the book. And so it shocked him so much that he snapped a picture and he said, you know what? I'm going to eventually come back to a story where I'll include this picture. Because for him, it was shocking that, latrines, I mean, we can't build our own latrines, and so for him, that was just, that triggered this whole book that he wrote eventually. And so, it's just this mindset that he's saying, we really need to get out of. And I agree 100%. And this is another reason why I'm doing this. I'm happy doing Femme and the show, because we feature African entrepreneurs, and not just, of course we have the guest, but we also give the guest a gift. And
exactly.
That is made by an African entrepreneur who's based either abroad or here, but it's an African business owner who made it. And sometimes things are made locally. We even featured a Ghanaian lady. She does candles and things like that. So we're really into showcasing what Africa does best. And we do so many great things, but I think we're just so used to using what comes from abroad and liking what others do that we forget that we ourselves do wonderful things. And we really need to put that forward more.
And that's why these platforms are so important. So nice. Okay, so we'll put that book in the show notes. I'm sure it's been translated. I
hope so.
Yeah.
And then Half of a Yellow Sun, of course. That was
yes.
That was my favorite.
Okay.
That was one of my favorites that I read years ago, but I loved it. I knew nothing about Biafran War and all that. I didn't I had heard, of course, of Nigeria and the, the traders and the whole Biafra, all that, but I didn't know the impact, right? I didn't even know that it had become a republic, and they wanted. So it was great. And I love history. I love history. Yes. African history. I love it. So it was a great book.
And it's a love story. So that was
as well.
Yeah, wonderful. Yeah. Okay. So any last words for our listeners today?
Well, first of all, Florence, I want to say thank you. Thank you for having me on this show, because it's very important. And I like I said, I try to support everything African around me these days. And I'm so proud of you for doing this. I think it's I was listening to the other speakers. I was like, oh my God, I feel like I'm not up to the level of other speakers. But I guess all of us, we bring something to the table.
Yes, we're all elevating us.
Exactly. Mm-hmm. What I want to say, I think what's important to remember is that, I don't know if I want to say, I love this global citizenship that you base on your shows. These women who are like, you sent me something, the Rwandan, Ugandan lady, and then the other lady who's African-American, but traveled to Brazil and worked in Africa. I love hearing those stories, because it's really, that it shows us that, as Africans, we have so many different identities. We do so many different things in so many different ways. And so I want to say, Africans, let's continue to do these things, but let's be proud of ourselves. Let's talk more. Let's put ourselves out there. Let's be proud of ourselves, proud of our products. I'm not saying, I'm not bashing anybody else, right? Because, but I just feel that we need to come back to ourselves, right?
Yes.
Because we've stayed away from ourselves too long, and we need to come back to ourselves. We need to really start appreciating Africa and Africans and the work that we do, and trying to make it better too, because, of course, some things we don't do so well. So how do we improve it? How do we really bring that professionalism to Africa? And for me, that's what's important. And that's what we need to do.
Okay.
I love this show because it allows us to speak about these different topics.
Exactly. Thank you. Thank you so much. I really appreciate it. And I hope to get back to Côte d'Ivoire sometime soonish.
Yes.
But not before we get
our friendly neighbor.
I know. And I could drive. I don't have to fly. So maybe that might be
exactly.
But I really want to go to your other home in Senegal, because that I feel is beautiful. In my future. I want to live there. I want to spend time there. I'm feeling it. Beautiful. So we shall see. Yeah. Yes.
In any case, let me know if you need any contacts, any whatever. I have.
Oh, yes. You got deep roots there.
You will love Senegal, because, the culture in Senegal, we were even talking about that, because, we do a show and shop. We do like pop-up sale that we did last December. And we were looking at designers. And I'm telling you, of course, Nigeria, without a doubt. But that's just, numbers, right?
Yes, exactly.
You can't get away from numbers. But Senegal, really, in terms of the work that they do, I think they're ahead of the curve in terms of, especially, compared to Ivory Coast. Designers, professional designers, they're really, they're really out there. They do a lot of beautiful things. So you'll love it there. Culturally, it's very rich, right? And they're very close to their tradition. So, you go to Senegal, you're going to have to learn that Wolof.
I know. I have a whole, I follow a Facebook, like Wolof Today. Not a Facebook, Instagram account that has a daily Wolof saying. Yeah. So I'm picking up small.
Yeah, because, they don't play. They really are into their Wolof, and they just, but I love that part about Senegal, because, Ivory Coast is very westernized, but Senegal is westernized, but it's remained traditional as well.
Right. Which I can definitely appreciate. Yeah. Wonderful.
Love it.
Excellent. Okay, listeners. So this has been another episode of the podcast that inspires a borderless mindset around doing something in the world. I want to thank my guests once again. And I want to remind everyone that you can catch us each and every Tuesday with a new episode at www.glocalcitizenspod.com. You can catch us on Apple, Google, Amazon, everywhere you get your podcasts, you can find us. And please share, subscribe, listen, learn. And until next time, bye for now.